Well, fall is here, and that means it's time for apples. Chef Laura from Celebrated Cuisine is here to show us how to make spicy apple chutney. Smells like caramel apples. That's a great place to start.
It's a good start, absolutely. Oh, who doesn't love a caramel apple?
Oh, yum.
So yeah, we're making a spicy apple chutney. Chutney actually has its origination in India, and it comes from the Hindu word chutney. And what it is basically is a combination of fruit and sugars and then pungent things like onion, a little bit of cider vinegar in this case, but you want to have a sweet and sour type of balance going with it.
Now, do they typically serve chutney like just as a side dish, or what do they do with it?
It's served as a side dish with curries, for example, but then we also use it just with cheeses and breads on a cheese presentation. We do quite a bit of that over the fall during event season at Celebrated Cuisine. And then we also, you could have it on something like pork if you want as a side dish.
Right.
Or as a sauce if you will. So
great.
What we're making now, though, is for this chutney, is I have in here a little bit of melted butter and brown sugar. We're going to add some shallots, which I just did. You'll add the peppers, so the bell peppers and the poblano. So that's our spicy factor right here. And go ahead and add the bell pepper as well. Gosh, it smells great already. Oh. And then this is dried cherries. Sugar. So there we go. We'll add the dried cherries to this too. We're just going to stir this until it's combined. And then the next thing I'm going to have you do is add our garlic, which is right here.
Okay. Oh, yum.
Nice and chopped up. And
do a lot of people take garlic in? Like, I feel like when I eat garlic, I smell like garlic for days. Does it just depend on how much garlic you eat? Does your body do you know this, or should I be asking a doctor?
Some people, you should ask a doctor probably, but they do call me Dr. Laura also. Yes. But it really comes down to the person and how you retain a certain aromatic when you eat it. Okay. So for me, for example, all the time.
Really?
So let's go ahead and add the cider vinegars. It's going to sometimes
the aroma,
and then you get a good hit of it, which makes you weep a little.
Sort of like we did with the cumin a couple weeks ago.
Exactly, yes. And so let's add our apples now. Okay, so I just diced up some Red Delicious apple.
Could you use any kind, or you're a Red Delicious fan?
For this recipe, I like using Red Delicious, but you know what else I love for cooking is Golden Delicious, because those are not an apple you would normally associate with eating what we call out of hand. You wouldn't eat it necessarily raw, but it bakes and cooks fantastically. So, but what I like about the Red Delicious is that it's going to hold its shape as this cooks. So basically what you want to do with the chutney, and we're going to add the last three ingredients, which is our sage, which is right here, chopped sage, a cinnamon stick, and a bay leaf. And then this is all going to simmer together. What happens with the chutney is it simmers and it begins to cook down. All those flavors start to really concentrate.
And this too?
We're going to add that in.
You know, I've really started using sage, believe it or not. Like, I found one thing to do with sage, and that's with like butternut squash. And butter.
Good combination.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, now I sort of know how those flavors blend together.
Well, and you know what that would go well with then is also pork, because pork and sage are actually really, really great compadres, I guess you could say.
And you could chop it up and put it on top of the pork.
Absolutely, yeah. Right. So we're going to let this cook down a little bit, and what happens then is as it cooks, it will get to a point where it looks like this. Okay.
How long do we cook this for?
Until all the flavors have melded and it looks a little more like a lot of the liquid has evaporated off. What's going to happen though is the apples will release their juices into this as well, so you get more of that sweetness, and then that combines, like I said, with more of the savory flavors of the sage and the bay leaf and the peppers. All that just really comes together just beautifully. Right. And then if you wanted your chutney consistency can range from completely smooth to as chunky as you want. There are no guidelines around that. So you can take as much poetic license as you want.
Now, if we didn't want it to be this spicy, could we just, not put in the red peppers? Like if I wanted it just sweet, which we all know that
you would keep the poblanos out. Keep the poblano peppers out. The red peppers won't add any heat, I promise. And then if you wanted to,
add raisins, and
you could do raisins, currants. I do a dried apricot and tart cherry chutney. Yum. I do one that is just cherries, and that's it. It just really it doesn't matter. It's up to you completely. And and what I love doing with my chutneys is we do a signature item for us is we do a puff pastry wrapped brie, and I have a layer of the chutney in there. So after it's baked, it just all melts together.
Are you going to have a holiday party that you can invite us to?
We have so many holiday parties.
Please.
No idea.
Please don't forget to put me on that list.
We're holiday party central, basically. So, if you want to taste what the finished product tastes like,
do we simmer this or we cook it, or what?
We're going to let that cook down just like it is. So this is definitely a good simmer, and then I'll move this over for you. But if you wanted to puree this, you could also. So I could even just give it a little bit of a. Use my immersion blender, which is a nice little tool, just to kind of give it some additional smoothness. And I think you're not going to find that to be hot, spicy. No. Isn't that good?
Oh, that's really good.
So can't you see that, like on a baguette with some brie?
All right, I'm not double dipping, everyone. I'm changing spoons.
She's using my spoon now.
I'm using your spoon. Thank you so much. Let me just have one more bite. Good, good, good.
And don't forget to go fishing for the bay leaf and the cinnamon stick before you serve it to your guests. So
thank you very much.
You are
this
welcome.
Is fantastic.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
All right, well, you can find this recipe under food on SonoranLiving.com.